Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast coverage of the 2024 Iditarod. I'm your host, Brendan Underwood. Thank you guys all for joining me and our guests this last week. It's been quite a good time for me, like learning the ropes and everything, and I've been learning a bunch about the race, and I hope you all have as well. To those who've been like repeat viewers, thank you for coming and asking questions and all of that. Today's going to be a tough one to get through. It's like the race has kind of been smooth sailing from an analysis standpoint. And we got some stuff to talk about. So a quick Sean update. Sean was in Nolado yesterday, and he is now moved over to, why am I drawing a blank on it right now? He is in... No, he's not in Koyuk. He is in Shaktoolik, excuse me. And I was listening to him this morning, and he was giving some good commentary live there. So anyone watching on the Insider, and you guys can enjoy that. And with no further ado, before we start getting into things and breaking it down, I want to bring on our next guest. Let me bring him in here. Our next guest is none other than 2022 Iditarod rookie Matt Paveglio. He is going to be joining us for a very insightful discussion and a breakdown of things. Matt, first of all, thanks for coming on today. How's it going?
Brendan, it's fantastic. Interesting watching the tracker and just a lot of depth to the race this last couple of days.
Yeah, I would say so. Well, yeah, let's kind of get into things. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Sean yesterday, he was working in Nolado, and Isaac Tieford came in, and unfortunately, something happened there with his dog, and he unfortunately expired. Is that the right terminology? Is that what I'm supposed to say, as opposed to just saying that the dog died?
Yeah, I don't know how much PR, you want to throw into this discussion, but yeah, this um Bog passed, and he
Yes.
is, yeah, definitely a mark right now. And we're all hanging our heads low. I mean, Iditarod flags are at half staff.
Yeah. So, I feel bad for Sean. Sean, first of all, he's worked at Dallas CV's kennel. He has worked firsthand with Isaac. Isaac and him are great friends. So there's the friendship aspect of what Isaac's going through, and then also just witnessing what happened. Obviously, at this point in time, we don't have a lot of information on the circumstances of Boggs passing. That's the PR friendly middle ground way, I think, to say this. And so I guess I'm just curious, where does your mind go when you hear a story like this?
You gotta approach this. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can, you emotionally is how at first it hurts. And I know, like Sean, anybody that knows Sean, he's an emotionally connected fella. So for him to see that, it hits him on a lot of different levels. Number one, the dog. Number two, just his friend going through it. And then it steps back, and there's a lot of gravity to it, because for all of us, it's like, um, what are we doing? Why did this happen? How can we prevent this? I mean, these like dogs are like our children. And not to put too much humanity into a dog. I mean, they eat their own poop. But they are just loving, amazing companions. And yeah, man, it hurts. I mean, I wouldn't lie if I didn't call about 5 people looking for some sort of moral compass on all of this and figuring out what I wanted to say today on this. And I called some of the best people I know, going, what do I say? What do we even say? But yeah, that's the emotional response I'm having right now, Brendan.
Yeah, and I I equally feel bad just talking about it. I've had kind of like this pit in the bottom of my stomach as news has unfolded since my last live. I've just been over here kind of like, man, how do I talk about this? I'm just a guy in Atlanta, Georgia, on, representing Iditarod Outsider and all the couch mushers, right? So, for me, it's hard. Like, obviously, I'm doing a live every day, and if something happens, we need to talk about it. But at this point, a lot of it is speculation, and we'll wait until the necropsy happens, and hopefully we'll have some more answers to questions that everyone's asking online and in the social media world, I guess.
Right. And so I look at now the next step of it is you start kind of doing your full assessment of it. You assess the situation from afar across the room, see what's going on, you come closer to it, and then you start really breaking down the parts. So we've done the assessment from afar. Everybody has. They've seen the video. They have some historical data that kind of helps them with their bias and just their judgment on what could be going on. So we have all of that collected, right? But now we have to take a step closer and figure out what is actually going on. You put your hands on the situation, and that's the necropsy. And that is the people that are actually there putting their hands on the dog, seeing the dog and figuring it out. And, history of what that dog had been through before. And from what we know, these dogs have clear bills of health, EKGs and laboratory studies, etc. I had someone talk to me about echocardiograms and what that could do for a dog. And for anybody listening, like if this, like, let's say this was a cardiac event, which is one of the culprits in the lineup of criminals, right? That could have caused this, aspiration pneumonia, some other infection, or a cardiac event. And so ways that we can prevent these things from happening are, more depth of testing. And we are really early in the process, really, really preliminary to really start doing that. But there's a lot rolling around upstairs about what this could have been and what we could do next. But depth of testing might be one of the answers. Genetic testing. Brendan, there's just a long line of science that you can go down to figure things out to optimize it and to grow as a sport.
Sure. And you and I were talking about this. I was texting you yesterday, like, okay, we're gonna have our hands full here. And you kind of alluded to, like, things happen. This doesn't necessarily have to be a musher's fault. You were talking about athletes like LeBron James' son passing out, or there's other examples of human athletes where they're at a athletic peak, they're doing what they're supposed to, and then for unknown reasons things happen. So we could sit up here and speculate, but I think it's best, I want to at least talk about this and ask you a couple questions, but let's not like speculate on this too much, and when we get that more information, we can kind of talk more about it kind of then, is what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. And I think that's important with just about every adverse event that's happened with the Iditarod. We got a lot to learn, and speculation and what we do online, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. But we don't have to perpetuate things down roads that we think we're absolute, or we know what's going on. We don't. Not one of us does.
And there's also something to be said, like, the race has veterinarians at every checkpoint. All right. So we can talk about that. You hit on the pre-race and what the vet checks and what is required. So it's not like, the dog is not getting cared for or tended to or looked at beforehand. And so,
right.
We could go down this lane later, but like, what more could be done is a topic for discussion, but I don't know if we're ready for that one yet. I do want to keep us on a path, which is just talking about some of the latest news, and then also we're going to break
For sure.
down what's going on at the top of the race too. Um,
Absolutely.
so I don't know if you had anything kind of to uh, end on in terms of the Isaac news and Bog and anything else.
Not, nothing with the exception of this was a team he knew, and he was running a conservative schedule from my perspective. This wasn't someone that was, pushing their dogs. I've seen that team train, and they train harder than they race sometimes. And honestly, just my heart goes out to him. The sport had, I mean, all of us, like anybody that walks a dog, skis in Alaska, anything, felt what Isaac went through on the Denali Highway. So this trauma for him is a continuation of that. And let's just be respectful of, Isaac and the dogs and his heart. So
Yeah,
that's all I want to say. That's all I'll end that.
yeah,
Love the guy, love the dogs.
that's a good place to end. And I'll add, having visited Sean before and met Isaac, like he's standout guy. He's dedicated the last 5-6 years to Dallas CV's kennel, and he's raised the dogs. No one has spent more time with those dogs that were in Isaac's race than Isaac. So my heart goes out to him, and man, the dude has been a part of some crazy, crazy things in just one season. So, but we'll move on, and we'll go ahead and cover the next passing of a dog, unfortunately, and that was with Hunter Keefe. He was leaving Caltag on his way to Unalakleet, and unfortunately, it appears as if he also had a dog pass during that time, and same kind of thing. We don't know a lot of information, but my heart goes out to him. He's been on the pod before. Super nice guy, super young. He literally, for Halloween as a 10-year-old, dressed up as an Iditarod musher. The kid is sleeping and breathing his childhood dream, and I know that I'm sure that he's wrecked right now. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Hunter Keefe piece of things.
Yeah. Just watching his come up in the sport has been pretty profound. I'm I dabble in the dog mushing. Every day that I'm not working at the hospital, I'm out there and I play in the yards and stuff. But Hunter Keefe has lived through some seasons and some dog yards where it was him and his musher, and they 24/7, 365. I mean, even his girlfriend has a bunch of dogs. So like this guy does not leave dogs. And what astounds me about him is when I talk to him about anything from medications, simple medications like zinc to promote a dog's like tissue growth, hair health, nails. He knows things that experienced mushers far beyond him don't, and he cares about the details. So, and on top of that, he's another happy, connected guy. He is not bigger than the sport. I've seen him carry dogs just for rest, like babies in the sled. Just pick them up and carry them. And he does these like, I hate to say it, but like he's just kind of an adorable guy. Like he's this guy that the sport wants and needs because he's just a happy, amazing guy. And my heart goes out to him. Hunter was born in the same hospital as my daughter. His dad and I got our starts in the same hospital in Lansing, Michigan. So there's a connection to Hunter that I have that, as a fan first, that is just, it's amazing. And then as a dog musher, his aptitude is through the roof. And my hope is that someone as genuine and gentle as Hunter is not crushed by this. And I think he's the type of guy that will help lead this sport out of this type of chaos too. I think he's got that type of potential. So I hope the sport recognizes that, and I hope he recognizes that, because he's just a sweetheart, genuine guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when we had Hunter on, we were dealing with some technical difficulties throughout the interview, and after a few times, it kind of got old, and Sean was like getting frustrated, but Hunter was just like this happy-go-lucky, like, oh, it's okay, you guys work it out, everything's gonna be fine. Um, and that's just my own experience with him, virtually in from Atlanta, Georgia. Um, but yeah, my heart goes out to him, and anyone who is in this situation, whether it's in a race, whether it's in training, anything like that. It's not an easy thing, and we just my heart. I'm sure your heart goes out to them as well, and so at least we wanted to talk about these stories, and I also wanted to talk about some scratches, like unrelated to the passing of dogs. We had one of our first scratches was that I saw yesterday was with Erin Altimus.
Yeah.
She was there at the Ruby checkpoint, about halfway, 495 miles in. And I don't know, Matt, if you caught her interview yesterday. Did you by any chance?
I didn't. I watched the tracker, and I was like, what? I saw her. I just caught bits of her leaving and then coming back in, and that's never a great sign. It's not a good sign. And so, and then I went back to my shift, and but I didn't.
So I was able to catch that one live, and the kudos to Katie Joe. She did a really good job interviewing someone who, I don't know if I would want, if I was scratching, I don't know if you're putting a camera in front of me and I'm talking to the camera personally. But kudos to Katie Joe. She did a great job. Erin felt comfortable, and she kind of broke down like, man, she tried and tried and tried. It sounded like she was just like, she talked about her sled flipping over a few times at different points. She talked about putting different dogs at lead. She, like, at one point she fell off of as she fell off of her sled, she was in like such soft snow that she had trouble actually getting herself out of the snow. I mean, the story just kept going on about her trials and tribulations out there. And my takeaway, though, is that she was overall in good spirits. As anyone who has to scratch, she certainly was emotional. But as she said, it was in the best interest of herself and the dogs. And as you just alluded to, watching her on the tracker leave a checkpoint and come back, that's never a good sign. So I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add to that piece.
You make it to the river and you have made the accomplishment that you feel when you get there is something else. You've just come off of one of the hardest, like 180-mile stretches or something, and it is there's nothing between Ophir and Ruby. You've got Cripple and they've done an amazing spot, but when you get to Ruby, as an athlete, as the dog, driver, as the dogs themselves, just the view of coming into Ruby and being on the Yukon River, this massive river with these beautiful, like, rock walls here and there. Erin has accomplished something amazing, and that's why it's a feat. That's why Nick won that amazing dinner. Racing, getting to the Yukon's a big deal. So hats off to her for that and her dogs. And then recognizing that, because now she just gets to hang out on the banks of the Yukon River with some amazing people, Billy Honia and Nate Titus, the guys that run that checkpoint, and everyone in the village, nothing but hospitality there. So I'm sure she's with good people, and I'm sure she's got some stories to tell when she gets home. This is Dallas will have stories, and Matt Hall will have stories from the front, but this back of the pack story to be told is it highlights how hard it is. It highlights exactly how hard and how remote this race is. And it highlights the spirit of it too. The people that have in the village that will help her get her dogs ready and will show her hospitality and just whatever she has. If she chooses to come back to Iditarod, awesome, good for her. But this being in Iditarod is in completing it isn't everything. It is it's a big part of what we're talking about today, of course, but like she's going to go home with an amazing story and she's going to be fine with whatever she does in life moving forward. Erin is. So kudos to her making it to the Yukon River, because that is a special checkpoint.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, that making it to the Yukon. So Erin is a lower 48er, and you know, they don't train in anything that can compare to once you get to the Yukon. Wouldn't you say?
It it's a big, wide open, amazing space. I'm sorry.
Yep. Um so yeah, like I was texting with one of my friends that's out there on the trail, and that's what he was kind of alluding to, is like for anyone who's a lower 48er, there isn't a terrain that's quite like the Yukon. And I guess also once you get to the Yukon in general, is it something where the temperatures are even that much colder? Can you talk about
Yeah,
that?
it's well, again, like I was in this protective bubble my entire race, so I kind of have like a skewed view on it. But also, you watch every race, what happens. The Yukon can throw a tailwind at you and then a headwind at you. The southern route, notoriously coming into Keltag, has those headwinds that just drive teams right down. You're seeing 4 and 5 mile per hour speeds. I've heard stories from your brother about getting dumped a foot and a half of snow and spending an hour changing runner plastic. And then he ran the same exact speed after the change of the runner plastic. The Yukon River is wide open, massive, and humbling. I mean, my first year in the sport, Jim Lanier crashed on some of the jumble ice and broke his shoulder. Mark Sellen crashed on jumble ice, had 7 broken ribs and a hemothorax, blood in his chest cavity that he ran the rest of the race with. The Yukon River can do a lot of different things: open water, snow machines, wind, just brutal cold. I mean, we are really close to some of the coldest recorded places in North America when you're on that river. So things can change. So yeah, it's humbling. It can be very humbling.
Yeah. Yeah. And my take from what I was seeing from the insider videos at checkpoints along the river and there into Unalakleet, people were cold. So, yeah, I mean, I think maybe it was Wally or someone around near Wally. Maybe it was Paige talking about Wally or something. She had said that she didn't have a thermometer on her sled, and so Wally did, and Wally's reads to -40, and it was below that. So, yeah, man, that's cold. That doesn't sound enjoyable in any way, shape, or form. How do you, like, when you're feeling -50 and colder? Can you talk about that? Like, how do you shift what you're doing when you're racing your dogs when it's that cold?
Oh yeah, you gotta. I try and personally get my water intake and food in at the checkpoint or when I'm camping, because when you're on the runners, everything, or when you start getting ready for those dogs, everything's got to be about them. I mean, every booty has to be perfect. Every coat has to be on perfect. If you're using foxtails, those have to be on perfect. Foxtails is the strip of fur that goes under their belly. Um, Everything has to be perfect. You can't take an M&M out of your pocket and eat it without feeling some effects of frostbite. It is so everything has to be right. And then if you get a wind, sometimes all of those protective measures you just went through to protect you and the dogs, it might not be enough. So everything has to be right. The margin for error is razor thin when you get to those temperatures. And then it is just, it's tiresome. Everything takes a little bit longer. So for the mushers, you've already got kind of a smaller window of rest, and then you take a little bit longer, 20 minutes longer to do your chores. Well, that cuts into your rest. The dogs are kind of laying there curled up in the balls, and it just becomes harder and harder. And I can tell you, the one of the beautiful things about that temperature, though, is when you're going and giving your dogs the massages and you reach right into their little bellies. It's just like warmth. Like
Yeah.
there's no hand warmer better than a dog's belly, and it's amazing how they jump out of it. And then you make this warm meal for them that kind of freezes in the bowl, and they turn their nose up into it, and all they want is a frozen piece of fish at that temperature, or something like that. But get the fats into them, get the proteins into them. We kind of shift from the fish, the water, more water content stuff, to a little bit fattier type stuff. But I've run a couple copper basins that were real cold like that, and I guess just the margin for error just gets smaller and smaller at those temperatures. Wally and Paige, though, they live it. They live cold weather stuff. I mean, we're talking. Wally lives. I don't know what his actual town is, but it's Skinny Dick's Halfway In is the name of the restaurant right there, and he's in that community, and it's pretty close to Fairbanks. Page is out on the Finale Highway. If these guys are saying it's cold, it's real cold, real cold.
Right.
By comparison, yeah.
Got you. So yeah, just kind of picking up the pieces on some other news. We also had Connor McMahon scratch. Connor out of he's out of Canada, Yukon area. He got to Galena, and unfortunately he had to scratch. I don't have much details or stories on that one. Again, another guest of the podcast. We had great time with him, and he's a great guy. Just getting to the start line was, I think, a feat in itself for Connor. We've talked this week on the YouTube lives. We've talked a lot about some of the power teams like Dallas, or the teams that kind of are self-sufficient in the sense of they have a lot of resources and stuff. Well, with Connor, he's one of the folks that Sean refers to as balling on a budget, right? So he's he's not got a lot of dogs. I think it's close to 20 or 25. But he's kind of doing everything by himself. And so, my heart goes out to him as well. But hopefully, I think the dogs were all happy. It was just, it was probably time. I have a feeling there could have been some leader issues. But that would be speculative on my part. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
Well, it's just, I mean, again, it's a hard race, and for someone to make make that choice to stop, where Hunter and Isaac, it was a pretty easy choice, and the race makes the choice for you as well within the rules. These guys that are stopping they're rookies. They're hard. It's hard to get into the race. It's hard to finish the race. But ultimately, hats off to them for saying, okay, I'm not going to push and ruin my team, because you can scratch in a race and have it be a very constructive thing for your teams. I've run B teams before in races, and I had to scratch this year in the copper. And while part of me, the ego and the competitive side was like, oh gosh, I'm really upset I had to do that. The more analytical side is like, okay, well, Booger and Rue looked really good in that race. Koala looked good in that race. Kissy and Nachek looked great in that race. So did Fez. These guys really grew from that race. I saw this, and this along the way. This could be better next time. And so you can step back from a scratch and rebuild, and come back much stronger. So hopefully that's what these guys are thinking. But there's not one person in this race that isn't a little bit competitive, and that pride and ego will mess with you. And it just, but then you get smart, you step back from it, and you just be thankful that you got this far. Be happy that you're on this amazing expedition of National Geographic proportions, and just be happy. I mean, it's pretty neat. Pretty neat that I get to meet Connor's handlers. He's got a great crew put together. So I'm really, and Deke. I've met Deke's crew, ran next to Jonah. He's very athletic, and he runs around in a flannel shirt when I'm in my giant parka. Makes me feel real bad about my dad bod. But like, he's got a handler with benefits, Nikki Preston, out there that's helping the team. Just a lot of good people working with him, Deke. But he's also a guy that won't push it. He knows the limitations of his team, and he's very happy uh, in his own skin as a musher. He seems like a guy that just is just happy doing what he does. So this is if his identity is to take care of his dogs and recoup for next year, kind of recircle, then cool. That's what we want, right? That's what we want. So it's those three. We got Aaron, we've got Connor, we've got Deke. What are the other ones? Are there
Um, well, there aren't any other ones that have been announced.
okay?
I speculate that Bryce Mumford, he is resting at mile 569, which is about 13, 14 miles shy of Nulato. I have some,
Close to Bishop's Rock, yeah.
yeah, I have some speculation there. Um,
Sure.
Joshua Robbins is already in Nulato, and I saw that he arrived in the 4 o'clock hour this morning. So he is, I think it was off of a 7 hour and change run. So I believe that he should be given an opportunity to leave. But the truth is that he's 40 miles behind the next person. So
Right.
I have concerns over Joshua Robbins and Bryce Mumford in terms of back of the pack. And then I will also tell you that I'm keeping an eye on Ryan Reddington. Ryan Reddington has
Okay.
been at Unilaclete for almost 16 hours. And, while I know that he has family there and there's a lot of people that know him, that seems very liberal of a break. I'm curious your thoughts.
It's a trap in Uniclete. They deliver you pizza and sandwiches, and there's a guy cooking you breakfast. So it's a damned trap. You get your own bed and there's showers. It's but Ryan he's been to the top of the mountain now. He doesn't have anything to prove, and this is growth in Ryan. I think he's a guy that he's pushed from the front of the pack. He's come in with small numbers of dogs. He right now can come into Uniclete, have a good run with his team, and this guy has built the sport by loaning dogs to junior mushers and other mushers. He's I just think there's been growth within him, like, that I've seen, and I don't know him, and I'm not an authority on this. I really sound like a blowhard talking head right now, but like it's we'll see. This is in the best interest of his team. He serves Alaskan natives. He serves the sport of mushing. He's an excellent advocate for the sport, and so yeah, it's his legacy, this race. So whatever Ryan Reddington wants to do, go do it. Enjoy some pancakes, Ryan. Cheers to you, because you can watch the race unfold like we are right now from that big screen TV and Unk.
Yeah. And I agree. That's kind of something that I was hinting at yesterday was I feel like and I've only been watching for a few years, so my opinion isn't much, but I do feel like in the short time I've been watching the sport, I've seen him kind of mature. We've seen him, like you said, run a small amount of dogs into Nome. We've maybe seen situations where dogs aren't as coming in as well as maybe they should. And I've been asking this entire race, because he did that run last year, that Caltag to Unilaclete, and then he did the Koyuk to White Mountain. And I've been waiting for that. I'm like, he was on the podcast and told us he'd love to actually do a third big run like that. And so this whole time I've been like keeping an eye, nothing. And I think it says a lot about him. The intention to want to do it, but not doing it because the dogs just don't have it, I think shows a lot of growth on his part. So I kind of agree with what you're saying there, Matt.
Yeah, his team was second in the junior Iditarod with Morgan Martins, and then did they won the good old Tug Bar Goose Bay 150 dog classic, whatever they call that race down there. Yeah, the good old Tug Bar. So he's done some amazing some things like that, I think, that are great for the sport. And again, I mean, supporting things. So I'm sorry if he's on your fantasy mushing team, guys, but he gave you a few points up until now. So, and he's always going to be a threat. He's absolutely going to be a threat. I can't wait until his brother Robert comes back into it, if we ever get him back into the sport, because he's another wonderful one. And then Ray and his older brother, and then his nieces Ellen and Isaac. The future of the sport here coming on. He's supporting it. So his coaching tree and legacy is going to be pretty good.
Yeah. And then on the scratch watch, I guess I would say, speculative again here on my behalf. Aaron Burmeister has been in Unalakleet for a good amount of time. He's getting there close to 12 hours. So I don't know anything here. I'm just like, okay, that seems like a long time to be at a checkpoint. Right. And, I know that Unalakleet arguably is probably the most, from an amenity standpoint, has probably got the most to offer. So maybe they're kind of kicking their feet up and getting a little bit fat and happy. I don't know, getting some sleep too.
Right. And these guys, like, they come into it to win it, but maybe they're also at a stage in their career. I mean, Aaron, this is where he lives. He's run this coast. This is his town. From here on in, he there's no one on this trail in this race that knows it better than him. And he teaches it and he knows it. So he doesn't necessarily have a ton to prove in this race. So if he's not going to win, I think these guys it's kind of honorable stepping back and not pushing it, and then let someone else sneak in the top 20 or whatever they're doing. But and then Brendan, it could be just they're tired. It's a hard thing to get to the coast, and if it's -40 and you have any sort of problems, you don't want to exacerbate those problems on the dogs. So sit back, do the right thing for the smart. And these guys think on that higher level. They're conscientious of all things surrounding the sport. So just hoping everything is correct, joking around about the sausage sandwiches and things like that. But you hope everything's all right with them. Mentally, these guys are going to be fine. They're real tough,
Oh yeah. Yeah. And definitely. Hearing, Aaron was talking, I forget where I saw this. I think it must have been in Unalakleet, but he actually helped build the runway there, I guess, for the airport. For about 3 years, he and his family lived there. So I'm sure he's happy where he is right now, and so we'll keep an eye on that. Maybe he gets back on, maybe he doesn't. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on Ryan and the back of the pack as well. But Matt, here we are 40 minutes in. We haven't even talked about what's going on at the top of the race. So for the sake of what we're trying to accomplish, we should probably do a little bit of that. And I've got the ticker there at the bottom that is pretty up to date. It is up to date as of 7:40 Alaska time. So we're about an hour or two behind, but I'm looking at the tracker right now. Dallas blew through Koyuk, and he is now camped. Maybe you can tell us about the spot he's camped. He's 16 miles past Koyuk. So I don't know if there's like a shelter cabin there or not. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so when you leave Koyak, you kind of you come around the corner and maybe you're on the ice a little bit, and then you see a shelter cabin. And for me, when I'm going past these shelter cabins, they're signature of like a recreational cabin, something for fun. But that's not the case out here. Maybe people vacation there, but a shelter cabin signifies you're going into the shit. Pardon my language. Jason Severs might be watching, and he always busts me for cussing. But
Shout out to Jason.
you're yeah, I love Jason, but yeah, he's a fantastic guy, also a golfer. But you start climbing into these hills, and so you're gonna go up like Little McKinley and some other things there between Koyak and Golovin. So he's up there, and my guess is he's either pinned down with wind or he's at a safety cabin. Um, Dallas, as he in this last stretch of miles, he can do long runs, super long runs. He can go Unk to Koyak, Koyak to White Mountain, and White Mountain in if he wants. He's talked about that strategy. He's talked about shorter runs and shorter rests. He talks long runs, short rests. I'm not sure what's in his mind, but he is not opposed to letting his chase pack, Hall and Holmes and all of those guys catch up to him, because right now, as we speak, he's been running about like a 16-mile lead on them. That's about a 2-hour lead, and maybe a little less. So he can sit there now with the strategy and the electronics we have, and he can let those guys come right up on him. 5 miles from him, and he gets up and goes, and he's pushed those teams, Matt Hall, Jesse Holmes, and then those guys to kind of abandon their strategies in order to catch him. And mentally for the musher and physically for the dogs, that's going to be harder for their team. So Dallas is going to be he is in a command position to kind of do what he wants. But these hills are not a joke. He's got to climb Little McKinley, and then he's got to drop down into Golovin Bay, which is like 14 miles of like blue ice. Like this is like he's crossing these wide open spaces with that the wind can really this is a stretch of the race that people get rescued from. This is where you hit your button and Blackhawk helicopters come for you, and it is and I it's brutal, it's wide open. I mean, muskox, polar bear, like these aren't likely, but these are things that can happen out there. It's wide open. So Dallas is sitting at where he is right now is up in elevation. And honestly, I went through there at night, and it's I can't remember if there's a safety cabin right there or not. But it's exposed where he is. There are little cleaves in the ground and rolling hills, but it is a steady step. They say there's 7 climbs. There's like 700 climbs to go through that hill. So he is. I never believe them when they say that. If they start saying numbers, but the one thing I can say about it, anything in the race, if there is like Blueberry Hills or Topcock Hills or Little McKinley, if a feature of the race has a name, it's a legitimate feature. It does not mess around. So he's right there, but he's also he can see way he's above everyone else, and he can see things coming his way. So hopefully he's okay up there. I imagine he is. But maybe guys behind him are also strategizing too. Maybe someone's getting ready to do a run all the way into White Mountain. It'd be very hard to catch him right now. This is going to take. It's going to be an act of Mother Nature to catch him.
Yeah, I was talking with my dad, and for me, I feel personally, unless there is some sort of weather situation or an unforeseen situation, I feel like the race right now is really for second.
Yeah. So we
And
have Matt Hall, Jesse Holmes, and Travis.
yep, and Jesse and Matt, it looked like they were almost like caravanning together this last little section into Koyuk. And Travis he's still out there on the ice, but he's about was that 13 miles out, so he's maybe another 2 hours behind them. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I do think that again though that we are talking about a race for second now. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We
And
said that about Jeff King the last time he was in the league too, and and he got pinned down in the blowhole. So yeah, again, it's not unlikely, but it's probably what 10% chance of catching him, maybe less, something like that.
let me ask you this, and this is where my lack of knowledge in the world of mushing and the Iditarod. So, you know, the him and his father have had the 2010s to 2020 were pretty much owned by them.
Right.
I'm just curious though, like, has anyone other than maybe his dad given him a big push along the coast to where he's got a lead, but like someone's consistently breathing down his back, or
I
is
think
it
Allie and Nick have both done that. I mean, he and Nick's race was pretty historic in what was that 2018 or 19. But so there's definitely been pushes. But man, who has more speed than him right now? Who can keep it up with the rest? And then just he's as soon as he got that 2 hour penalty, he started strategizing for this point. Like he was already down here. He's not he's a chess player, so he was hours ahead at that point, and maybe giving him 2 extra hours to strategize is about the scariest thing for any one of his competitors, because he just knows. He's talked the science. He's lived the science. He's not fly by the seat of your pants artist or a empathetic feeler out there. He's a scientist, and he's
yep.
a shrewd competitor. So 2 hours extra rest, okay, I'll take it. Perfect. Give me time to strategize.
Yeah, and I
But
feel
I
like
think
I feel like that 2 hour penalty, like he got to, I forget where he did his 8 hour before. Let's see, what was that
I'd have to go
before?
back on the tracker. I was
I'm pretty sure he did it in the lotto, if I recall, right? So like it felt like during that time a bunch of people were passing him, and he was like back there at like 10th. I think I maybe saw him even in 11th or 12th, if I recall. And then I remember at that night I went to sleep, and then I woke up, bam, he was already at the top of the pack. Like
yeah.
he negated that gap, that lead so fast that it makes me wonder what the conditions have to be pretty gnarly out there. I mean, Travis looked stellar before his run to Unalakleet, and so I'm just wondering what happened there. We haven't heard a lot on what happened with Travis's team. Clearly, the steam, ran out though. But yeah, it's just yesterday we had a question in the chat about is Dallas considered to be one of the greatest of all time, and yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
is Tom Brady considered to be one of the greatest of all time? I mean, uh, eh, yes. We'll go with the answer yes. He's everyone else is kind of. I mean, physically, him as a human being, he's probably one of the best athletes that's ever been out there. I mean, Jesse Holmes is no slouch, amazing mountain runner. There's been a lot of guys, but there's also been a bunch of winners that are, you know, beer drinking smokers. No offense to those fellas, but I mean, Dallas is an athlete, so that keeps his mind crisp at the end right here. That is a big deal. Matt Hall, Jesse Holmes, these guys are in. They could probably play a lot of different sports. Mushing is their sport, and they are true athletes. And at this stage of the game, I think it's definitely a benefit to have a better physical body and a better mentality at this point in the time. Travis is right there with them. These guys are very strong, very smart guys, but at a certain point, it's that mentality that is separating these guys. Someone has a better strategy, and Dallas rested at the right times. He let the others think he was falling back. They rested. He slips past them. There's all sorts of sleight of hand and gamesmanship, and that's all what attracted me to this race. Jeff King and Lance Mackey pretending to sleep at checkpoints and all of the shenanigans they pulled. This is the stuff that is really exciting to watch. This is the positive stuff, but for sure. So don't know what Dallas is doing up there, but his dogs are resting, and they were resting before those other guys that are chasing him, and they're going to be resting afterwards. And he is going to go downhill from here into Gullivan, and he's going to fly into White Mountain. He's going to come into White Mountain with, a 3 hour plus lead. And even if he came into White Mountain with a 1 hour lead in that stretch of trail, it would be very, very, very difficult to pass him. It's going to be tough. It's not the hardest, craziest trail, but the conditions can get rough. We'll see. I don't know what the forecast is right now, Brendan, out there. What it's exactly doing.
Yeah,
My key grip and producer, it can help me come up with the forecast. I got TG on the side here doing all
nice.
the
Yeah,
stats and analysis for me.
TG, if you can hook us up, that would be great. It's so funny too when we talk about weather. Sean's like, you got to go, like, don't just go to weather.com and like type in Gullivan or whatever. Like, you got to go to the official whatever. And so I will trust whatever it is that you guys are pulling up to give us a clear picture of what the forecast is.
We use WTF weather. It has all sorts of hilarious jokes and things like that on there. We keep it nice and light,
I like
it's
it.
the weather in Gullivan is cold as a witch's. Like that's Noah is overrated. Right now, Koyak -24. And it looks. I see it's pretty calm. Pretty
Okay.
calm. So -24 feels like -24. So that does not matter though. Like if it's sunny and calm there, you get up into the hills, might be a couple degrees warmer and blowing like all get out. So -24 and sunny for these dogs is like optimal running temperature. Maybe a little bit cold. I like to say -20, -10 to -20, but they're hungry and they run fast and the trail is great. So hopefully that's the case. Now the trail won't be great up in the hills if it's been blowing. You'll go from a surface that Anton Ono could fly on to powder just like
Right.
that. Just
Yep.
like that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, will
It's
be
gonna be
interesting to.
interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say it'll be interesting to see if weather does play a factor, at least at the front of the race. Like, I feel like inevitably the last 5 years that I've been really paying attention, that weather does come into play for the back of the pack, right? But it always seems to elude the front of the pack, and for the sake of some excitement, it might be nice to see if some weather comes into play. So
Oh, to
we'll
have them all tucked into White Mountain, not being able to leave for a little while, or leave and go to that first safety cabin, and then have them kind of like have to, drag race from safety on in or something like that. It would be amazing. That would be a finish that I'd watch. I might get in a plane and fly out there to see that. Like, that would be amazing. But up at the front, the question TG and we were asking two different questions at the front, but one of them was like, who's looking the best? Who would be a golden harness recipient up there? We've got that race for the second. We've got Dallas out front. The top 20 guys. I'd have to look at the stats. It's who has the most dogs and who's taking the best care of their dogs, and that's another little treat here that like they win an award. It's pretty prestigious. I think it's a lot of guys goal to win it. So in the past, the year I ran, Dan Caduce finished with all 14. That was how many dogs we started with. He's top 5 with all 14. Pretty freaking impressive. And then Jesse Royer finished top 5 with all 16. So I'd like to see, I haven't looked at this, but for the viewers, or for anybody watching, that's another race here. This is like the Tour de France. It's not always about who's in the yellow. It's about who's winning stages and sprints,
Let me ask you this. So, Wally, in terms of top 20, Wally's got the most dogs. He's got 14. He's just out of Uniloclete. And so does it always go to the person that has the most dogs, or is it voted on, or what?
the mushers get in to Nome, and there's a team of veterinarians dedicated to the Golden Harness Award. So they leave the chute and they go into the dog yard, which is just, a couple blocks down. And the team of veterinarians takes each one of the dogs and does another physical assessment on it, takes their coat off, takes their harness off, looks at every pad, and then they do kind of like a runway walk. Like you take the dog on a leash, you walk them down, and you turn around and you come back. So it's kind of they do a thorough assessment. I can tell you though, Wally, I mean, being a junior, like a mushing aficionado as I am, I've seen the way they stretch their dogs. I've seen the way they feed their dogs. I've seen the way they run their dogs. And Wally is is building a mushing empire. Like he's one of these, the world knows Emily, but this started with Wally and his vision. And he ran the race 20 something years ago. He's built a team. Now he's running Josh McNeil's dogs. We all know that. But what a testament to a musher and his care to be able to take another team into the top 20, be competitive the whole time, like poised to do something. And I wouldn't be surprised at 14 dogs, you have more power right now to go up and over the Blueberry Hills, go over to Little McKinley, climb that, and then go through the Topcocks. He's got more power. So watch for Wally to continue moving up. Wally won't sacrifice the health of his team. Not that anybody wants to, but yeah, man, that's I know Wally, and that is not a dark horse for this award. He's I think the race wants to give it to him. It's probably his to win.
The story for Wally for me is one of the best stories of this year's Iditarod personally. The misfortune for Josh to have a season-ending injury. He's put a lot of work. He was on the podcast, and he talked about his intentions to run a competitive race this year in the Iditarod. So he gets that injury, and then Wally, last minute, has little to no time on those dogs. I think Josh said he did like 160-mile series with the dogs before that's not a lot of time. And,
No.
And then his last Iditarod was in 2001, right? So it's been 23 years, and he's just hops on another man's team and is going to take it potentially to the top 10. I am super impressed. I was going to bring up one of our next points, most improved musher award. And
okay.
It's pretty much his in the bag. He finished in 2001. He finished in 40th.
Yeah.
Right. So like right now he's at 14th. That's 26 spots. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of others that I was just noting. I was trying to find anyone who could try to keep it close, and there's really not anyone. But I did want to throw out Paige in 2022. She got 20th place. And as we do this right now, Paige is in 6th place. So she's 14 spots. That's impressive. And then the other person was Jason Mackey. Jason Mackey last year was the Red Lantern Award. Shout out to my Red Lantern here in the background.
Nice.
Thank you, Kat. Kat was she's someone watching who sent that to me. So thank you, Kat.
Awesome.
And he got, 29th last year. He's currently in 11th at Shaktoolik.
Man, what great representatives for the sport. I mean, Mackey says, I'm going to honor my family's name in the sport. Like he is in it. He's a guy that, again, showing tremendous personal growth, just loving human being, not above the sport. Like he comes, we pulled up to the ice next to him, and he's hooking up his team, and he's fielding my questions because I've got no tact. I mean, you might be hooking up your team, and I'm in your face talking to you about mushing. It's and he was just loving about it, and he's going to do good. Jason, that would be great to see him win a most improved. Paige for a most improved or a humanitarian award. she's another one that takes great care of her. We both have personal friends and that have worked with her and Cody, and they just seem to be doing it the right way with a good, strong, competitive team. So those names up at the front belong there. Everybody that's in that top 20 absolutely belongs there. Oh, we got chaos. The dogs are knocking down the set.
Okay, so yeah, now that you brought up the dogs, so you are watching my brother Sean's dog Jack, right?
Oh, he's right here. Yeah.
Little Jackie, little
Jackie
doodacky
Poo.
Jackie. And then you said yesterday that you went to pick up 3 dropped dogs. Is that right?
Yeah, so I helped Sean Williams train. Sean's sitting, he's on the portage right now. And I think he's sitting, he's been kind of rocking around 25th, 26th, 27th, kind of running with Anna Hennessy and a few of them. Great caravan, great dogs, fun to watch. But his wife is at home with Benny and Leo, their 2 little ones, and his sister-in-law Becky is watching the yard. So TG, my daughter, and I are picking up their drop dogs, and so we know all of these guys, and they're all coming back in great shape. So we picked up Booger, and we picked up Longo, and who else did we pick up from
Koala.
and Koala? So Booger, Longo, and Koala. Longo and Koala are Mitch Seavey dogs that he borrowed, and then Booger is a dog that Sean owns. He's one of the Antioch dogs, and then we're also picking up dogs for Brenda Mackey or Will Rhodes. And so we've gotten 3 of their dogs. So we've got Steel, Amos, and Butterscotch, Buttercup. Butterscotch, sweet dogs, but we have a drop line in our backyard. We have Jackie here. He's an extra dog. And then we're watching 2 golden retrievers. It's nuts. I'm trying to prove to my wife I can pull this dog yard thing off, and I'm failing miserably right now. So probably not in a residential area in Eagle River. I am not going to win a harness award for being neighbor of the year. I'm not in the running.
Oh, that's funny. Too funny.
It's good thing I don't live in an HOA. I would be outed without a doubt.
So real quickly, I wanted you brought up Sean's name, Sean Williams, and you've been working with him this last season or 2. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I helped him train for a little while 3 years ago. Basically trained September, October into November, and he moved to Chugiak. He started a yard. I think it was 2019 ish. Is that right? When we were training with him, something like that. 2019. He was going to run the 2020 Iditarod, so we were helping him train. And we left Sean's yard. We went over to Team McCann so TG could have a junior team to run. Sean got his team ready for that 2020 Iditarod. He had family come up. His mom got sick. So the day before the race, he withdrew from the race. His mom passed away. And it was obviously as tragic as it could get, and just as awful. So Sean took a step back from the sport. I think they kind of left the state for a little while, did some RV thing, went and he concentrated on his family and his wife and just kind of getting around. And tell you from those type of losses, it's a profound thing, especially to kind of put together another monumental effort. Well, Sean this year, Sean in 2021 brought the dogs back to the yard, took a year off, brought the dogs back to the yard, and just said, okay, we're going to go at this again. So the 2022 Iditarod, Sean's a rookie for the second time, and he's running a solid race, middle of the pack. He's got fat, healthy, happy dogs. And he gets caught in the Topcock Hills with the Dieters and Gerhardt and Bridget. 6 people had to be rescued off that hill. And when Sean was laying in his bag, he was thinking of a couple different things. Beth was pregnant with Leo at the time, and Benny was there. And it was his mother's birthday. His mom had just passed. So, search and rescue comes by and bangs on his sled and says, "Are you alive?" That was the message. He's laying in a sled, bundled up, every half an hour having to get out and take his, get his dogs uncovered. And he was just going to try and wait this storm out. He's 14, 15, 16 hours in, And finally, that he says, no sooner than when the snow machines got out of earshot, he his the thoughts of his kids came into his head, so he hit his button, and he got search and rescue to come back and get him. Everybody did fine, he did fine, but there he was, like 62 miles from the finish of the Iditarod and hitting the button, but for the right reason, right? Like this
Yep.
is there's bigger things in life and there's bigger things to honor. So for Sean to kind of like regroup, and those were with Martin's dogs, who he's been running since he came up here. Sean's been up here 15 years mushing. Sean regrouped, went to Antioch, bought 11 dogs from Richie Deal, brought some dogs in from Dean Osmar, as a lot of top mushers do. Dean Osmar's dogs are amazing, and even got Mitch Seavey to lease him some dogs. Which, if you can get Mitch Seavey to lease you dogs, you're doing something right. So Sean invited my daughter TG and I over this year and said TG can have junior Willow team and junior Iditarod team help me train. So we got Sean's team ready, and Sean knows every bit of this race. He's got Excel spreadsheets of everybody that's ever been in the top 20 and their run times and when they rest. He is a very analytical creature, man, a few words, but man, he is just great to be on the trail with. All of that goes away, and he's just kind of a giddy guy, like at an eighth grade sleepover, saying goofy things, great comedic timing. I would give anything to be out on the trail right now with Sean Williams. Like, he's a loving, amazing human being, great father, just good guy. And I can't thank him enough. He's keeping me around in the sport, like letting my daughter and myself run teams, and building us up. So Sean's doing great. It's fun to watch him run next to Anna Hennessy. Anna's running Kathy Frederick's team. Shameless Huskies there, and I got to run Kathy's team, the 2022 Iditarod, and Anna's running great dogs. She's running a lot of 2-year-olds, young dogs. First big race stuff. So what she's doing as a rookie is pretty darn amazing. So her and Josie, my two favorite rookies in the race by far. The rookies that haven't seen the race course. So, yeah, so it's interesting to watch him. Sean's listed as a rookie, but not able to win Rookie of the Year. But just fun to watch these guys run in a race. And I'll tell you, it's hard, because this is all, as a musher, that's all I want to be doing. I want to be disconnected from the grid and out there, not worrying about anything, about simply existing on the trail.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, Sean and I have talked about it before, my brother Sean, about like, once you get to start the race, you're finally like a sense of relief, because you're like, it's finally here, and you're like leaving everyone and everything behind, and it's just you and your dogs and Mother Nature. So and we had earlier on this week, Christy Barrington was on and Wade Mars was on, and those two have run, I think it's like 26 Iditarods. This is both their first year in a while not running it again. And that was the question I had for them was, what's it feel like being at home this time of the year for the first time, in Christy's case, 15 years, in Wade's case, I think it was 10. And so everyone that's been on, though, is like, man, I wish I was out there. I wish, like, sitting here analyzing, it's fun. Breaking it down's fun. But everyone's, like, got that desire, I guess, in them to get back out. And that actually is a good segue, because one of the questions that we got in the chat, Matt, was asking, this is from Jeff Miller. He really enjoyed watching you, and sorry if you've already talked about this, but when will you be in the Iditarod again? I really enjoyed you.
Man, Jeff, who knows? It's got to be right. It's got to be right for me. It's got to be right for my family, and I've got to have the right dog situation. I don't know. Ideally, in a dream scenario, TG, my daughter, and I would run it together when she's eligible in 2027. But it's a financial burden. But it's not even. It's that, and it's also, I might still be tired from the 2022 Iditarod. It's an exhausting endeavor. Like, the race itself was amazing, But from September 1st, when we really started training, through March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, I had one day off. Every other day I was either working, during the COVID, the Delta variant, which was ripping us up, or I was out training, and made the Iditarod very, very easy for me. Like, that was fun, and I had this great pocket of weather. But I'm not super duper eager to get caught in some weather and be super cold again. Um, but yeah, I want to. I spread my mom's ashes at Old Woman's Cabin. I really want to get back there and hang out.
Got
So
you.
yeah,
So
someday. Yes.
there is a desire. It sounds like there's an intention. It sounds like there's a dream scenario as well.
Yeah.
So Jeff, just be on the lookout. Maybe it's not next year, but it sounds like it could be in maybe within a handful of years or something. But as is the case, like even with my brother, I know Sean wants to get back out there, but just as you said, it's got to be the right circumstances and situation. Sean doesn't have his own kennel, right? So it's like you got to work for the right person and find the right situation. And, Sean's worked with two rock star names, Jeff King and Dallas Seavey. So, like the work he knows is the mindset of someone who's every year trying to win the Iditarod.
Right.
And I think that he learned a lot doing that, but I honestly think that he might enjoy a situation where there is less focus on the win and more focus on getting to know him,
Yeah.
So
Which Brendan, like, it's there's, I want to be in the Iditarod, no doubt. I also think the Iditarod expedition ideal or ideology where it isn't a race, like my daughter TG and I talked about this, that would be amazing too, where you can pull into a village and you can have a potluck every night and hang out and sing with the kids and engage with the town, and it's something of that sort. Right now we got to kind of separate the dogs because of doping and terrorists and like all the weird things that we talk about. I don't know if these are real threats, but this is things that can happen, and just for safety and some kid throws a chocolate bar to a dog. We got to be careful with that stuff. But if you can come into a village and just kind of enjoy that Alaskan lifestyle, and that's what I felt like I saw at the 30th, in 30th place, middle of the pack. I felt like I got to pull in. I never raced until the end when Karen Hendrickson was like pretty close to me, and I had been messing with her for 5 days. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna catch you. I'm gonna catch you real good, lady. And I did. And I teased her about it, but never a race for me. It was just to get to know him, because like guys like me or like Sean, we don't know if we get to do it again. So we got to kind of guarantee a finish, and I know Sean, your brother, definitely wants to get to know him. He's finished an Iditarod, but he talks about it like it's a subpar thing, and I'm like, it's not, man. I don't want to go through the gorge twice. Nobody wants to go through it once, like he had to go up it and down it, and in that race. So yeah, I mean, my dream scenario isn't necessarily the dog team I'd run, but it would be with like running like with your brother and running with some of the other, the other people on the team, so we can be not only Iditarod insiders, but Iditarod insiders, like we are,
hey.
Starlink right from the sled. I'll show you what the gorge is all about. Maybe a little bit of a delay so you can hit that sensor button.
No, it's so funny actually, is Sean and I have talked about, like, well, if you get back into it, like we have this podcast thing going, it'd be kind of cool to document the behind the scenes of really like what it's like and getting into things and all of that. So no, it's an interesting conundrum for Sean, like I know he wants to, but I think he also enjoys some of the freedoms that aren't necessarily given to you when you're got a team to run all the time, you know?
Brendan, I can't imagine like just having like a wide open like I maybe I'm gonna go fishing this weekend, or maybe I'll just shoot down to Girdwood and ski, or maybe I'll go cross country skiing. Maybe I'll like learn to backcountry ski. Maybe I'll take the weekend off with my wife and we'll go to Seattle and listen to some music. That has not been on the radar for 10 years, almost 10 years now. And it's kind of it's for me in my situation a little unfair to my wife, because I came into this later, you know.
Yep.
This is it, and it is a hard thing if you're born into it, you know, or you're, you know, the marriage starts or relationship starts and you're in mushing. I think it's a little bit different. And like Sean, like he can do whatever he wants, but he also I mean, he's playing music, he's singing, he's doing some things, you know, he knows that there's life outside of mushing. And I think that's a good thing to keep in context for everybody, and even people in the sport. Dallas took a year off, right, to kind of get back to life, because to do this race, to be a part of it, from what I've seen, and granted, I'm not a real musher, I'm a rent-a-musher or a dog jockey.
Oh, come on.
It takes a heck of a lot of commitment to do it right. You got to be fully invested. So, and
Sure.
everyone that's ever done this race or got to the Yukon, Aaron knows this, you know, Connor knows this, you know, Deke knows this. It takes a lot. So regrouping doesn't mean regrouping just to get back in the race. It's just, how can we be involved? Now, Sean and I, like, we're kind of on the same tip. We're going to be involved any which way we can. I'm race organizing. He's running podcasts. He's out doing Iditarod Insider. We're not gone. It's just we're finding our niche, and we're going to promote the sport in a positive, healthy way any way we can. And so, yeah, it's fun. I'll be involved some way or another. Sean will be involved some way or another, like for all the time, you know.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So we've been on for almost an hour and a half, and I really
Right.
want to just say thank you for your time. I do have. We'll move this into the conclusion stage of the show. There's one question from the chat. Sherry is asking, I guess she saw a video with Jesse Royer, and she talked about, in quotation, it says 10 tug lines. And she's asking if you could talk about, what does that even mean?
So I'd have to see the video for context, but 10 tug lines, when you say that to me, means we have 10 dogs on the team. 10 tug line is what the dog is connected to the sled by. You know, you've got I'm trying to do this, like, draw on the screen here. Wish I had teleprompter next year, Brendan, teleprompter.
That'll be next
But
year's upgrade.
a dog is in a harness, and basically the harness comes off the dog's body behind the hips of the dog, you know, right through the tail. If you can draw a line straight back from the tail, and that is your tug line from the harness to where it meets the sled on the gang line. 10 tug lines means you got 10 dogs on the line. That would be what I would assume.
Okay.
You threw 10 of them.
Or, yeah, or you got a bunch of knuckleheads on your team, and they chewed through 10 tug lines, and you've got to replace 10 tug lines, which could be an issue. If you don't pack tug lines, now you got to get creative.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. It was the video where she talked about her spill. So maybe there
Speaking
was.
maybe about the power. If you have 4 dogs pulling you down a hill, that's not as bad as 10 dogs pulling you down a hill. So that could be.
Gotcha. And then the other thing I'd be kicking myself if I didn't mention this, because I've been looking for her to make a move, and that is with Amanda Otto.
Oh God.
She is pulling a classic. This is right out of the Amanda page, which comes from the Jeff King page. She has run the most. I'm not saying most because I've compared everyone, but she's run for 3/4 of this race, a very conservative race where she is just resting her dogs, getting them eating, getting them water, and then like wash and repeat kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I've been looking for it this whole time because she always ends very well. And dude, 7th place right now. She's resting at, I guess that's a shelter cabin on the way to Shack.
Yep.
But man, I am just so impressed with, and I need to go back and break down her move because I think it was probably Koyuk to Unalakleet. I think she did a 14 hour, so she stopped somewhere and did like a 3 or 4 hour break. And then she did 5 hours at Unalakleet, and she's on her way to Shack now, and that's putting her in 7th place. Man, she's steady Eddie. I don't know what the female version of Steady Eddie is, but I would apply it to Amanda in this case. But man, she's up there with Jesse Royer, Pete Kaiser, Milla, and it looks like Jason Mackey just got there. So
I mean, she's on fire. She was one of those names that I think we all had heard. Anybody had heard like anything coming out of Jeff King's kennel or just kind of watching her growth. They know that there's probably very few weaknesses in her game mentally, physically, or with the dogs, and just a high ceiling. So I think we're all like, before this race, I was fully expecting her to bang for top 5, or definitely be within the top 10. But she without a doubt could win this race someday. It won't be this year, but if she is there and she's got as much adoration as she does by Jeff King and then just everybody in the sport, she's tough, she's shrewd, she's pedigree, man. Her grandfather was Mr. Raider, Jack Otto, 00. I mean, he is a Hall of Fame football player that went on to lead a successful business career. She knows the way she's cut, that she can do anything she wants, and she'll do it the right way. So I think Amanda Otto has a real high ceiling. I'd have to go back, and look at the analytics again and break it down. But I think, Brendan, I might be the color commentator in our relationship.
Hey,
you and I,
hey, especially if Sean's going to be out doing the insider every year. I know that, we talked about him leaving, like, man, this could be, he didn't know everything that he was getting himself into. He's like, Greg's just like, show up and I'll show you the ropes kind of thing. And, like a couple different mushers were like joking around with him, like, man, this thing is, you might be surprised at how tough it's going to be to work on the insider. But then I checked in with him a couple days in, and he was like, man, I'm having an absolute blast. And I think for Sean, like you said, being a part of this race, whether it's as a musher or in any other form or fashion, is really going to be good for him. And so yes, Matt, if Sean's continuing to be out there during the Iditarod, working for the Insider or volunteering or whatever it may be, I may need to consider a full-time color commentator. So I appreciate you.
I could be your Michael Strahan to your Kelly Ripa. It'd be great, man.
So I'm Kelly Ripa. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know how this works. We trade spots. No, but it's a riot, dude. Watching Sean take like the torch from Sebastian Chanel. I mean, they're exactly the same guy, right? They just kind of, parkas laid open, crazy hair, just walking around muttering, sentence fragments. Like they're fantastic, And then as the race goes on, those guys know the course. They've been on it a whole bunch. They're great characters, consistent. And so, yeah, it's just the whole, and Katie Jo, like her connectedness and her enthusiasm, like it's going to be amazing. Like, you get Katie Jo and Liz Failer out there. There's going to be in the next couple of years, it's going to be a good family event. So whatever shape this race takes in the future, I think we got really, it's hard to deny, like if you know these people, like solid human beings at the core of the whole thing. And, and Brendan, you guys, hopefully this podcast kind of keeps going. There's a lot, there's a few different podcasts out there, but this is fun. I like doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was theorizing about, like, now that we have this set up, it might be kind of cool to offer like once a month live podcast where like our guests, we announce it with enough time and people can come on and same thing as they are today, interact. Maybe there's a lot of questions, maybe there's not.
Yeah.
But that could kind of be like a unique thing that isn't out there. So I'm going to talk to Sean about that, obviously, but that was somewhere where my mind was going. So
I mean, really, for national media, they need like, and we do break in, maybe for the right reasons, maybe for the wrong reasons sometimes, but like national media needs I think it would be a good idea to have a correspondent like in the field. So like, Amy Lawrence, if you're watching, or Pat McAfee, all of those guys, like bring someone on that knows the sport. Brennan's right down there in Atlanta. He can just walk over there to CNN or whatever you guys got on, and just clickety click, log on and do his thing. So yeah, there's we've got I'd rather get a good look at a T-bone steak by taking a butcher's word for it, but it's got to be your bull type of thing.
Oh, I knew something was coming, man.
I don't
But
know.
yeah, no, Sean, he talks about it all the time. Like anytime a story gets to like ESPN, it's some person sitting in an office that's never been to Alaska in their lives that's just writing a story that they don't know much about, most likely.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you on that. There was two things that I wanted two shout outs. So you see me, I've got my Iditarod Outsider shirt on. I just wanted to give this. Oh, you have one too? No,
well,
okay.
not an outsider shirt, but Junior Musher, Alaska bound. This is Tara Crossman, came up from Maine last year, and just a shout out to her. I know her and her family would love to be up here for this race, and I think they'll be up here again. But shout out to my maniacs.
Nice. Yeah, I just Iditarod Outsider the is a Facebook account that has a lot of followers, so most of you probably already know about it, but has funny takes on everything Iditarod. So wanted to give that a shout out. That's been making, like, when I go on social media, that's kind of been something fun that I look forward to.
Absolutely.
To seeing what the latest post is. And then also just for me, like trying to do all of this by myself and figure out like certain storylines or information. Shout out to Tony Ritter. I don't know her. I think we've exchanged a few messages on social media, but she does a great job of just like disseminating information. And, so I just thought I would give a quick little shout out to both Tony and the Iditarod Outsider wearing my shirt today. Proud of that. And then I'm super excited for tomorrow. Tomorrow, I haven't yet announced the time, but we're going to have Josh McNeil back on. And I'm excited because he's going to be in Nome. And so
Fantastic.
Timing wise, we're going to kind of keep things open, but what we're looking at doing is I would like for him to see the finish line, see whoever it is, who I think will be Dallas. But I want him to see that and then like come back on and give us some of his own, what he's seeing with his own eyes kind of thing. So I'm super excited to have Josh back on. He's super analytical, and him and I have been texting throughout this, and so that's the announcement for tomorrow. And just real quick, a couple of more chats came in. Lisa says the Insider crew and coverage is top-notch this year and loving your daily interviews here, offering a fun behind-the-scenes insight. Thank you, Lisa. I do fully agree. The Insider has definitely taken an upgrade this year. And then Sierra says, Tony is amazing and would be a fantastic future guest for the pod. So putting it out in the air there. I love it. Matt, is there anything else that you want to end on? Promote yourself or any storylines or anything else that you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah. So Bristol Huffman up in Kotzebue just won a 120-mile race. She's a junior musher that competed in junior Iditarod. So kudos to Bristol for winning that race. That's the future of the sport. Fail Randall just won the Nome Sign 10. which is it's a fast race, on the historical Iditarod Trail. Ellen Reddington was like 1 minute off of the course record in that race on her 18th birthday. So so long to an amazing junior career and someone that's going to be a good representative of the sport. Our juniors have an amazing future. We're building up the Junior Willow 100. We're keeping it going. It'll be in its 17th year. I'm going to be a part of that. We got a local race, the Solo Sweepstakes at Chugiak Dog Mushers. That's coming up in a couple weeks. So I'll go out and groom some trail and run some dogs the next couple days to get that ready. So dog mushing will be alive and fun and well. Get out and volunteer in the chute, volunteer to help any which way you can. And that's how we keep this thing rolling, guys.
Nice. Yeah, I honestly would love to get up there and try to do some volunteer work, whether it's for the Iditarod or just in general. I'd love to kind of get more, actual in-person observations of races as opposed to through a tracker virtually.
Sure.
So,
man, I'd love to be down there golfing a little bit more rather than, on my PlayStation right now. But that's to come.
Yeah, the golf after. So it's funny. Real quick, we'll sign off on this.
Sorry.
The weather here in Atlanta has been getting nice, and it's golf weather right now for sure. And leading up to doing this year, I was like, if you go out and play golf versus get ready for what you're about to do, then something's wrong. So I told myself no golf until after the Iditarod's finished, so that way I can focus on this thing that I'm doing by myself. So come down with Sean, bring Sean with you. We'll get a round or 10 in, and we'll have a fun time exploring the South, man.
Sounds good, man.
But
Brendan,
again,
I appreciate you having me on big time.
Thank you so much, Matt. Let me just move us over to our end screen, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks again for tuning